Since everyone said how clear and precise my last tutorial was, I decided to make another one. I know it's been a while since I've worn a sleeveless shirt, but hell, that doesn't mean I've lost my love for them. This tutorial is about... No one's ever came up with a name for this one, so I gotta come up with a name for this and put it in the title. But separation ring spinning, basically. It's a very interesting trick that everyone loves. Why do I have those? Again, like cake flexing, it's a pretty subjective trick, you know, everyone does it slightly differently. I do it personally by throwing it with them already separated so that it immediately starts off. Some people start them together and then separate them, and some people would like to keep them together and others would like to keep them apart. But it's all a matter of personal taste. I personally, again, I can start them together and separate them. I don't like to do that because it's less showy. This way, if you're performing it in front of an audience, it doesn't look like you're just spinning two rings. It looks like you're doing it a completely different way. But that's beside the point. Maybe I should switch colors for added emphasis. There we go. It's a very unique trick. It's something that a lot of beginners can get a grasp of. Some non-jugglers, it's really tricky to understand how to keep it going. It's pretty easy to start it. I mean, you just need to like angle your finger if you're starting them together, and eventually they will separate. Or you throw it by holding them like this. Give a close-up of that. You start off with them both like that around your thing, around your index finger, and then you separate them. Separate the outer one, the first one. Put your pinky between, keeping the other two fingers out of the way, and throwing it by pushing your pinky and having the other ring follow. That's a pretty simple way to do it. Oh, and stopping is another hard thing, but we'll get into that later. The thing that you have to realize, first and foremost, is that they're not 180 degrees separated like most people and non-jugglers will think. They're actually together, but only separated enough so that, you know, it looks like they're 180 degrees. The reason for this is that if they were 180 degrees, there'd be no way to give both of them more momentum. You know how if you're spinning one ring on your finger, you have to move up and down in time with it to keep it going. Same goes for this. And if they're both 180 degrees, there's no way to give them both more momentum and keep it going. So, what you have to do is, let me get the black one again, keep them separated, but so that they're on one side. And they're going to rotate around the finger like that. And basically that way you can keep moving it up and down and giving them both momentum at the same time. That's the basics of keeping it going. But you just have to get used to the way it feels. You're not going to be able to do it at first. I doubt anyone will be able to do it at first. You have to get used to how it feels, and then get used to keeping them on one side so that you can keep giving momentum to both of them. And then eventually it'll make sense. It'll click in your mind at some point and you'll be able to do it with no problem. Until then, I would suggest practicing just to get used to the feel of it with either two different size rings, such as if you've got a junior ring and a regular size ring, that's great because they'll always separate. I mean, unless you're trying to keep them together, and even then it doesn't work. Or if you've got a larger ring and a standard size one, that works too, like a baboche or something. Or you could use two different type rings, such as a Dubé, which is heavier, and an Airflaton or an Absolute, which is much lighter. And they will start to separate much easier, and they'll separate by themselves. And you can get used to how they feel and how they look, and judge it for yourself from there. But once you've gotten down the basics and all that stuff, getting used to starting it and keeping it going, then what you have to do is worry about stopping. Stopping is really something that's hard to get right because it's so easy to screw it up. But the most effective way to stop is to just learn to, you know, how you would stop one ring on your hand without using any other part of your hand. Is just move your arm so that it cancels out all the momentum. It's kind of the same way. If you can do this, you can stop two rings just as easily, pretty much. You just have to, again, get used to how they're separated. But I find that the best way to stop it, and the way that I personally do it, is by doing a combination of that. But the problem with it is that if you cancel out the momentum, it's going to want to move to the side, and it'll have a 50-50 shot at coming off, at least in my case. So what I do is I start to cancel the momentum, I move my hand back and then forward again in time, and then I close my thumb around it. Because by the time that I've moved my hand back, moved it back forward, the rings are now both on the opposite side, and I just close my thumb and immediately get a grip. That's the simplest way for me. I know everyone's going to do it their own unique way, but that's how I stop it every time. And again, once you learn this, this is a basic trick. You know, you can couple it with, you know, do two rings in another hand, or say you can throw it and then do something like the ring spin pirouette, or, you know, just think of your own things. Like another quick one off the top of my head that I hope practice is throwing it in the opposite direction. That is much harder, apparently. There we go. It's harder, and it's not distinguishable for an audience, but it's a challenge for you. Or you could do something that I figured out recently that no one else does, is throwing it horizontally. No one else does that. And trust me, I've looked. So that's it for separation ring spinning. Again, like cake plexing, it's subjective. You'll do whatever you want with it. But remember the key things. The easiest way to start them is to start them separated with a pinky between. Throw it with your pinky, and then keep them on one side. Don't let them go 180 degrees, otherwise this will happen and you're not going to be able to do anything to keep it going. One of them is going to stop or fall off in this case, and yeah, so keep them on the same side. Remember to figure out your own way to stop, because everyone's got their own best way. I do a combination cancel and grab, so figure out your own methods, and I hope to see everyone doing this move sometime soon.